You know those days, right? When you're just running on fumes after maybe a terrible night's sleep?
Oh, yeah. We've definitely all been there.
So today we're doing a deep dive into some really interesting research. It's looking at creatine.
Yeah. Usually you think gym supplement, muscles.
Exactly.
Right.
But this is asking, could it actually be like a secret weapon to help you bounce back when you're sleep deprived?
That's the core question. We're looking at a study that investigated how creatine might help counteract those dips, physical cognitive.
When you're running on what, like 3 to 5 hours?
Precisely. Which is, let's be honest, a pretty common scenario for a lot of people.
Absolutely. So our mission here is to unpack what this research might actually mean for, well, for anyone trying to function after not enough sleep.
Okay, so one of the first things that sort of jumps out is the dosage for these, let's call them routine sleep disruptions.
Right, the 3 to 5 hour nights, not the all-nighters. What did the research suggest there?
It points towards about 100 milligrams of creatine per kilogram of body weight daily.
Okay, 100 milligrams per kilogram. What does that translate to for most people, roughly?
For most individuals, that works out to roughly 5 to 10 grams per day.
5 to 10 grams. So not a huge amount, really.
No, relatively modest. And the idea is that even this amount might make a noticeable difference in how you feel and perform on those really groggy mornings.
That's practical. Now, I heard there was an interesting comparison made in one study, something about caffeine.
Yes, that was quite fascinating.
Yeah.
They looked at sleep-deprived athletes,
Okay.
and they compared that standard creatine dose, the 5-10 grams or so, to 1 milligram of caffeine per kilogram of body weight.
And how did creatine stack up?
It performed comparably, specifically in restoring skill performance, things requiring coordination and precision.
Wow. Okay, that's surprising. So creatine holds its own against caffeine, at least in that context.
Seems so, yeah. Which suggests it could be, another tool in the toolkit, maybe instead of caffeine or even alongside it for some people.
So does that mean they work in similar ways? Are they both just giving you a jolt, or is creatine doing something different?
That's a really good question. They're quite different, actually. Caffeine is primarily a stimulant, right? It blocks adenosine receptors.
Makes you feel less tired.
Exactly. Creatine, on the other hand, plays a more direct role in brain energy metabolism.
Brain energy, how does that work?
Think of the phosphocreatine system in the brain. Creatine helps maintain this system, which acts like a quick-access energy reserve.
Like a battery backup.
Sort of, yeah. It helps rapidly regenerate ATP, the main energy currency of your cells, including brain cells.
Ah, okay. So when sleep deprivation puts stress on your brain's energy supply.
Creatine helps buffer that. It helps maintain those energy levels, potentially keeping things running smoother.
So less of a stimulant jolt, more like fundamental energy support. That makes sense.
Precisely.
Now, the research didn't just look at the standard bad night's sleep, did it? It also touched on more extreme situations.
It did, yes. There was investigation into using a single, much larger dose of creatine,
How large are we talking?
around 20 to 28 grams, taken all at once.
Okay, that's significantly more than the daily 5-10 grams.
Definitely. And this was studied in contexts of severe sleep deprivation, like being awake for, say, 21 hours straight.
And what did they find with that big dose?
They saw some promising effects on maintaining alertness and performance on cognitive tasks, even after being awake that long.
That sounds like it could be really useful in, critical situations, like maybe for shift workers or during emergencies.
Potentially, yes. But it's really important to emphasize this point.
What's that?
This higher single dose isn't the recommendation for regular use. It's not a way to hack your sleep needs consistently.
Right, it's more of an occasional, maybe emergency use tool.
Exactly. For those rare critical moments when you absolutely have to perform despite extreme fatigue, it's not a sustainable strategy for dealing with chronic sleep loss.
Good clarification. Always important to distinguish between daily support and acute interventions. Now, one more key practical point, timing.
Yes, timing is important.
There was something about taking it too late in the day.
That's right. There's a potential consideration that consuming creatine, especially later in the day, might interfere with your natural sleep drive. Adenosine builds up during the day, making you sleepy, and creatine metabolism might interact with that somehow.
Okay, so you don't want something that helps you during the day to then potentially make it harder to fall asleep at night.
Exactly. So the general advice based on this is to take your creatine dose, whether it's the daily 5-10 gram or a potential larger dose, in the morning or perhaps early afternoon.
Get the benefits during your waking hours without disrupting nighttime sleep. Makes sense.
That seems to be the optimal approach.
Okay, let's just quickly summarize the key takeaways then. For those common nights of maybe 3 to 5 hours sleep?
That daily dose, around 5 to 10 grams for most people, seems promising for potentially helping with both physical tasks and cognitive function.
Right. And it might perform similarly to a moderate dose of caffeine for certain skills.
Yes, based on that one study.
Then for the really extreme situations, like being awake for almost a full day.
A single larger dose, 20 to 28 grams, showed potential benefits for alertness and cognition, but that's strictly for occasional critical use, not a daily thing.
Absolutely not daily. And crucially, take it earlier in the day, morning or early afternoon, to avoid potentially messing with your sleep later on.
That sums it up nicely. It definitely presents some interesting possibilities for managing, the fallout from sleep loss.
It really does. So, for everyone listening, maybe think about those times you've really struggled after a poor night's sleep. Could creatine, particularly that standard daily dose, be something worth looking into?
It's certainly food for thought and maybe something to research further or discuss with a healthcare provider if it seems relevant to you.
Definitely. Thanks for breaking that down. It leaves me wondering, though, if creatine supports brain energy like that, could it have uses beyond just sleep deprivation? Maybe for other mentally demanding situations?
That's an interesting question for future research, perhaps. Something to ponder.